Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, Amy.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
We're recording, so this will be on the thing.
Hi, Elka.
Hello, I thought I'd be here on time and look like I'm ready to go.
Appreciate that.
Do you mind if I do a quick check and make sure that I can share the screen and the
Feel free.
presentation, or do you want me to wait? Okay, I'm
Go
gonna do
ahead.
it rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, shoot. Look good?
Yep.
All
Looks great.
right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll just allow one more minute for folks to join. Just allowing one more minute for folks to join. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining, everyone. Hello and good afternoon. On behalf of the Oregon Project Management Advisory Board, welcome to our Project Management User Group presentation of the month. My name is Amy Croucher, member of the OPMAB, and I will be facilitating our meeting today. We'd like to start with a few housekeeping items. As you may have noticed, this meeting is being recorded. Please mute your phone or PC if not speaking to help reduce any background noise. If you are not speaking, you are encouraged to remain off camera. A link to the meeting resources will be shared shortly after today's session and posted on the DAS YouTube channel and OPMAB website. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your digital hand and Elko will respond to them throughout the presentation. The Project Management Advisory Board has 2 openings for board member positions. For more information and to apply, use the link in the chat. Also, if you're interested in business analyst processes, the Business Analyst Networking Group meets every even-numbered months. For more information, visit the BANG website posted in the chat. The Oregon Agile Community of Practice is also an OPMAB initiative. For information, its website is also posted in the chat. You're welcome to share with your colleagues and are encouraged to spread the word on our PMUG Wednesday presentations. They can request to be added to the combined PMUG BANG OACP listserv using the link in the chat. And the OPMAB has also launched a mentorship program. Mentorship offers an opportunity for growth. Mentors gain fresh perspectives and sharpen their leadership skills while mentees receive guidance, encouragement, and access to valuable experience. The relationship fosters mutual learning, trust, and professional development that benefits both individuals and their broader communities. Whether you're guiding or being guided, mentorship promotes a culture of continuous improvement and connection. We'll first open the application to mentors to build our mentor pool. Then in a couple months, we'll open the mentee application form so folks can start to get mentor matches and make connections. Please select the link in the chat for more information and to sign up to be a mentor. Now I'll introduce our presenter. Elka H. Bruton is the Program Manager of the Government Information and Library Services Division of the State Library of Oregon. She holds a master's degree in Library and Information Science from University of Washington, a BA in Rhetoric and Composition from Washington State University, and a certificate in Public Management from Willamette University. Prior to joining the Government Services Division, Elka was the long-term Public Services Librarian and later Program Manager of the Oregon Talk, Book, and Braille Library at the State Library. Having recently retired from the singing lead in a funk band, Elka now spends most of her free time relaxing, reading, chasing her 2 Scottish Terriers, and trying not to think about work. Without further ado, please take it away, Elka.
Hi there. It's nice to see everybody today. Thank you for that introduction, Amy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started here. What I'd like to do is pause. I'm trying to watch the chat here, but I'm also going to pause every couple of slides as it makes sense to check in on questions, but also please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. I like to answer as we go because I feel like those are things that are relevant to you in the moment. So as you said, I'm from the State Library and I want to share some very specific things about the State Library today, but I want to also give you an overview about the State Library and what we do to make sure that you are aware of all of the services that the State Library has to offer. So hold on, of course, I'm immediately going to have some technical difficulties in locating the control of my slide deck. Sorry about that. So first of all, let me just start out by acknowledging that there are 3 main libraries within the state of Oregon that most people think of when they hear about the state library. So that is the State Library of Oregon, the State Archives, and then the State Law Library. And usually people ask, what's the difference? How do you all work together? And who do I use when I need what? Right? Well, we think of ourselves as sister libraries. We all work together, typically behind the scenes, to provide information for you all. So I'm going to go into more depth about the state library, but if you think about it, the archives, they preserve and protect the records of the state. So I think of that as how we do the work of the state. The state library preserves and protects what we do. So the published documents, final documents, reports, things like that that we do. And then the law library, of course, they're a tiny bit different animal. They are law librarians. They're helping with the laws. They're helping with a little bit different level of information, but we all work together to make sure that you and the citizens of Oregon have the information that you need. So specifically, let me make sure I didn't go too many. All right. So the state library has three main divisions, and this is how we provide the work of the library for the state. So our main divisions are the Talking Book and Braille Library. So that is a group of people who provide audio and Braille books for anyone in the state of Oregon of any age who experiences a print disability. So that could be somebody who is blind, someone who is low vision, someone who has a physical disability, a learning disability such as dyslexia, or even some cognitive disabilities. So basically anything that prevents them from interacting with the written word, whether that's reading the words on the page or even holding those books physically, is someone that is qualified to use the Talking Book and Braille Library. They have been part of the state library since 1969, but they're part of a larger group within the Library of Congress that has been active and providing these services since 1931. So a long history of getting accessible materials out to our citizens. The next department is the Library Support and Development Division. What they do is provide consultation services, best practices services to our public libraries, our school libraries, our academic libraries, and really all kinds of libraries in between. So they're doing a lot of behind the scenes, making sure that grants get out, making sure that they assist with continuing education for librarians across the state and things like that. Lastly, the third public division of the state library is my division, and that's the Government Information and Library Services. So we provide the information services for you as state employees and for the citizens of Oregon in a few ways. One of which is by making sure that we provide services for legislators, state employees, all of the boards and commissions, and to help promote the information of the state of Oregon and to improve the transparency in decision making about the work that we do for the state of Oregon, but also to help create more active and participating members of our society. So we want people to know about what we're doing and to be curious, and so we make sure that that information is available. What we have at the state library are skilled research librarians. So we've got a team of, we call them reference librarians, who provide access to materials, information. You can call us up and say, I'm looking for this article, I'm looking for a journal, I'm looking for more information about this topic, looking for data. I want to know who else in what state is doing the same thing that my agency is doing or is facing the same issues. And our reference librarians will get out there, find that information, and connect you to it. Every state agency has an assigned librarian. So we do have somebody that is going to be your number one person to help you at all times. But anytime you give us a call or reach out by email, there's always someone on the other side of that phone that can help you out or get you to a person that can help you. We have also library services for the public. So people are curious about the state of Oregon, about the history of Oregon. They want to look at documents that we have in our collection, so they can come in, reach out to us the same way to either view those documents or find access to those materials. For state employees, we have ebooks, journals, we have full text articles, news stories, continuing education information, everything that is normally hidden behind paywalls. So if you think about when you were in college and you had access to your academic library and you had this entire amazing library and set of resources at your fingertips, most of us, once we graduate, we lose that access. We don't have that anymore. in Oregon, we're actually learning that we're a very rare state where we have devoted that work to make sure that our state employees do continue that information access as part of your job. So it's a really cool thing that we do. We also curate e-clips. So some of you may be familiar with our daily news clipping service called e-clips that comes right to your inbox. That is hand curated by our reference staff every morning. They comb through a set of newspapers and news sources across the state to locate news stories that are specific to your agencies, news going on in Oregon, legislative activity going on in Oregon, and government activity. And they deliver that to your inbox, to your email inbox, and you can click through and read those stories. All of those stories now include direct links. So for those of you who have been using eClips for a long time, you may recall that in the past, when you were curious about an article, you might have to reach out to us to get the full text of that article. Now we are only putting things in those news stories that are linking directly to the access that you already have once you're logged in, and you can just go right through and get that full text article on your own. We also, and this is what I'm going to get more into today, since 1907, I think, we have been the collector of all Oregon government publications. So all those documents, physical and digital, that your agencies are producing, we make sure that we keep them in perpetuity for permanent public access to anyone. So sometimes you are the customers that are asking for that information, but mostly it's members of the public who are interested in that information. The idea is that when this was started, everything was printed. And so we were the main library, and then we have what we call depository libraries throughout the state that also keep copies of those materials. Now, because most things are created digitally and are born digitally, everything really lives on our servers here, and it doesn't matter where you live in the state or anywhere, you can gain access to those materials. So we do that, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. Any questions so far about the state library and what we do? Give me a chance to take a sip. I was just visiting with the Leadership Oregon cohort that started this week, and I was in person down at OEM in their command center visiting with them. So it's different to go from a group of people that are in the room with you to a group of names and icons on the screen. That's all right. So to dive more into the Oregon Documents program, this is part of ORS 357, which governs the state library, and specifically the piece of that legislation is 090 that talks about the Oregon Documents collection. Thousands per year of publications are created by your agencies. So think about from the top, it's really easy. Think about your annual reports, your reports to the legislature, reports on activities. I don't want to say proposals, but you know how you're getting ready to do something, so you will do a study about the effectiveness of this possibility that you perform this action or you start this program. We collect all of those, so anything that's published by your agency. We also collect materials that you create that are meant to educate the public about the work that you do. So a really simple example that all of us come into contact with is, think about every time you're at a restaurant or you're in like a public restroom somewhere, and there's some kind of a sign that may say, washing your hands prevents the spread of disease, right? And it says, wash your hands for, I'm going to get this wrong, 45 seconds, and it tells you do all these things. And down at the bottom, somewhere on that document, it'll say something like, provided courtesy of the Oregon Health Authority, right? And we see these everywhere we go. A lot of us don't think about that. Those are versions, those come out, those are keepable. Those are something that we keep. It's information like that we also have in our collection. We also have your brochures, posters, things like that come out that your agency may create. Again, like I said, to educate the public or inform the public about the work that you do. So all kinds of things throughout the year are created by your agencies, and our job is to make sure that we find them all, collect them all, and we work with you to do that. So part of the ORS specifically states that each of your agencies have a what we call a documents liaison. It's very similar to your records officer that the archives works with to make sure that they collect the records from you all. So each agency should have a documents liaison so that if we have questions about a document, let's say there's something missing, let's say we found the draft of a report, but we can't find the final of the report, we're going to reach out to you all to see what we can find. Lately, I've also been reaching out to some of these people in agencies to look at documents that we have collected in the past that do not actually fit the criteria for the collection, and I want to check with you or someone at your agency to just check in. You know, this is what I think. This is what I'm seeing. Do you think that it fits this collection criteria? And we have a conversation about that. So that's what that role is. So we work with you all. This slide here is just talking about publications versus records. So going back to the state archives, this is where I said earlier about the state library. The archives collects the how. So all of the data that led up to it. So all of the meeting minutes, memos, emails, all of that kind of ephemera that goes into creating a document is what the archives collects. We collect the final product, the what. So like I said, our agencies work together to make sure that you all have access to that material, both as agencies and citizens. All right, so how do we do it? I talked about having an agency liaison. So going back in time, when publications and reports were all printed through publishing and distribution, this was pretty easy. We had an agreement with publishing and distribution, the state publishing agency, that said that every time something got published or printed through publishing and distribution, they would automatically send us 10 copies. So 10 physical copies of everything that was printed out came to the state library, and we basically sorted through them. So anything that we didn't need went into, recycling. Mostly what we got were items that we did need for the collection. So we would keep 3 for us here at the state library, 3 physical copies, and send the other 7 out to those 7 libraries. Sorry, the 7 depository libraries throughout the state. However, most things don't get printed anymore. Things are born digital. They're put on our websites. They are not, or they're printed in-house. Maybe one copy is printed, a couple of copies are printed, but it's not printed en masse like they were before. So it's a lot tougher for us to collect the materials that way, and has been for about the last 25 years as we've moved into this digital age. So what we did 25 years ago was we built a tool that we call the repository acquisition tool. And I describe it as combing the SharePoint Oregon.gov system. It doesn't really. What it actually looks for is it identifies changes or new documents that are placed in that SharePoint system with a specific purpose of going onto Oregon.gov. So we designed a system that would go out and find that every day, would look at that system, the SharePoint Oregon.gov system every single day. What that leaves out, though, is any of your agencies that are not on Oregon.gov or using Oregon.gov. So we have to look for those documents in a different way, but the bulk of them can be found through this repository acquisition tool. Double check here. So every day, the government documents librarian, who these days, that is me, who is doing this work, I review all of the documents that show up in the repository tool. We're averaging about 35 per day that come through. Some day we go as high as 70 documents. Some days it's 20 documents. It really just depends on how active you all are, what time of year it is. So last couple of weeks of December, a lot of those reports were getting turned in and posted, like our government to government report was due. Our trying to think of which it's not the emergency plan. It's the I'm going to lose the name of it, but anyway, lots of reports are due by the end of the year. And so through December, that tool was a lot busier. I look through there, I check against the criteria for collection, and truly just look at every single document. I weed out things that either we already have things that are drafts, things that aren't complete yet, items that just that have nothing to do with that document's criteria. And all in all, I end up collecting about 15% of whatever I look at every day and send them off to our catalogers to be cataloged. They are almost all already in the PDF format. What we do, so we really don't have to do much to them, but what we do, we take that PDF, we make sure that it's all cleaned up the way it should be, and we add optical character recognition so that screen readers can read them. We add some metadata in the background for our cataloging purposes here for the library to make them findable for people, and then we upload them to our catalog. We upload them to what we call the OCLC catalog. If you think of that, that's like the primary or the master library catalog for everywhere. So anyone looking in a library catalog technically can locate these materials and locate that we have them here at the state library. So it's a finding aid. Any questions about this so far? So, whoops, too far. I talked about using the repository tool to locate SharePoint or Oregon.gov documents, but again, all kinds of, lots of agencies do not use that area specifically, or there are things that our system cannot locate. So if you post things on your website and they are within a table, or if they're within like an interface, something where it includes some logic where people can search for something and then find that information, where they have to input some kind of information to then find it. Our repository tool just can't see that because, like I said, it's looking for documents that have been uploaded or changed. So we have a workaround for that. We have several different ways. We have a lot of known documents, and we know what their schedules are, whether they come out yearly, quarterly, biennially, semi-regularly. And we, our team, we have about 6 cataloging assistants altogether who work on this. They go and they physically go out and look for these materials on a schedule to see what they can find, what they're missing. You can also submit documents at any time. I've just been working this week with, I want to say, someone from DEQ about some citing updates that we realized based on a reference question that came in from a citizen, that our collection was missing the citing updates, the monthly citing updates, starting about 3 years ago. That's where it just dropped off, even though the agency still had those materials. So reached out to the agency and worked it out where they just sent us all of their reports for the last basically 12 years, because we noticed some other holes throughout the collection. So at any time, you can send a full and complete document to us at oregon.documents@slo.oregon.gov, and that goes right into our cataloging area. That does not mean that the document automatically ends up on our website. It still has to go through our cataloging process and make it on there. So all of those citing reports that we just received, it'll probably take us a couple of months to sort through those, match them up to what we already have, find those holes, and make sure that we get them into the collection. You can review your agency's collection at any time and all these links are included in this information, but it is digitalcollections.library.oregon.gov, and you can search for your agency. Just type in the name of your agency. It will take you directly to that collection. It's going to show you everything, and it will show it to you in what it thinks of as important orders. So you may need to either search within that collection if you're looking for something specific. There's a little search bar where you can type in the name of your document, or you can sort, or you can just call us and ask us, do you have this? And we will be happy to do the looking for you. But you can, if you ever look in your collection and you see some things are missing, you can send us an email at that same email address and offer any suggestions or corrections, or let us know what we're missing, or ask, why don't you have this? And we'll take a look at what's going on. So as I mentioned earlier, documents liaison, that is in statute that we want each agency to identify a liaison. We had liaisons identified in all agencies up until about 5 years ago. our program kind of had a little hiccup where we lost track of many of our liaisons. A lot of people moved around within the state. Right now, we don't have a very good list. What I would like to do is reach out to our agency directors to talk a little bit more about this, not position, but this role, and ask for a new liaison, or at least a refresh of the liaison role. My suggestion will be, when I reach out, that the public records officer is a great person to attach this to, because it's the same, very similar type of question that I'm going to be asking that person if and when I have to reach out. It's not, I try not to bother you very often, and I try to combine my questions all together instead of sending you 15 emails a day, because nobody wants that. So the role is meant to gather and send a list of publications to the library each year. I'm not sure how realistic that is. I think that when it was written and our agencies were producing a lot less, that may have been a much easier ask, or a much easier lift for a person. I see us moving forward as still, like I said, working together in this kind of work. So we do our best to collect what we have. Maybe once a year we send you a link directly to your agency's materials, and invite you to take a look at, look for major holes, things like that. So questions about that? Right. So I talked about making sure that these materials are accessible, and that the history behind this law is to make sure that citizens of Oregon especially can gain access to these materials at any time. Of course, over the last really 15 years, digitizing documents, so scanning documents and making them available, it has been a big focus. And sorry, it said that there was a chat, and I just wanted to make sure I was not missing a question in chat. I apologize. Okay, sorry, did something else. About 15 years ago, we started working to digitize our materials, and so we did not have scanners. We were working with different organizations to digitize parts of our collection. As we've gone over the last 10 years, especially, we have been able to use funding to be able to purchase scanning equipment, scanning software, so that we can create high quality scans, high quality digital records, but also there's a certain amount of preservation with digitizing. So you don't just scan it and save it. You've got to scan it and save it. Make sure you have it backed up in 3 or 4 different places, and make sure that you can maintain the quality and integrity of those materials. So as new materials come to us, they either are already digitized, or we're able to digitize things pretty quickly. That still leaves the entire collection that, while this collection started in 1907, the materials that we have go all the way back to territorial times for the state of Oregon. So we have things on our shelves. I was just looking at something from the state engineer from 1914 yesterday that has been sitting on a shelf and hasn't had any attention. And now my question to the person I handed it off to is, has this been digitized? Do we have a better copy of it? The one I had a torn cover on it. But we want to make sure that those older materials that have been hanging out on the shelves are digitized. We want people to have access to those. As librarians, we believe in access isn't just about getting it, it's about making it as easy as possible for you to get it. So no matter where you live, no matter what your abilities are, whether you have a car, whether you can drive, whether you're looking for this information at 10 o'clock at night or 8 in the morning, we want you to be able to have access to that. So we want to make sure that all of those older materials are also digitized, and digitize safely, because not everything, once it gets to be a certain age or it's in a certain format, like the size of it, may not be necessarily conducive to us digitizing it here. So then we have to ask questions, figure out if we need to reach out to partners. Archives has some scanners that actually put ours to shame. And so, looking at some of our partners to see if there's certain materials where maybe we can trade services, where they scan something precious for us and maybe we repair an entire set of their organ blue books going back for the last 100 years. So we work a lot on that. We have a team of digitizers that keep that going. And so we've got catalogers and digitizers, and sometimes sometimes they're the same people. So we just work through systematically are working through the print collection while also maintaining the new stuff to keep that out there on our system. And just want to back up just for a second, because it's that digitalcollections.library.oregon.gov where you can view all of those materials. That's a system that we purchased and migrated to about 2 years ago. It's owned by a company called Recollect. So we refer to as Recollect, but everything in our collection that is digitized can live there. We can also create digital exhibits through that system as well. And we're really hoping to be able to start that in the next year. Where did my cursor go? Well, thank you. All right. And I guess that brings me to my last slide. So thank you. Before I go, just wanted to remind you, or before you all have questions for me, activate your library account with the state library. You can click this link. It's your username, your OR number, and the last 4 digits of your last 4 digits of your OR is your password when you start out. Call us if you have any questions. Anytime you need library assistance, whether it's a reference librarian or you just need some help, you're just trying to find an article or a journal, reach out to us at this number or this email. And specifically for Oregon documents, just relinking you again to that Oregon documents email. All right.
Thank you so much, Elka. Does anyone have any questions? Please feel free to raise your hand. Place them. Okay, Tina asks, how do you decide what hard copy to digitize next?
That's a great question. So basically what we had been doing is what we call copy one. We call it digitize and discard. So what we've done is, like I said, we would receive for the hard copies, we would keep 3 of the copies. So our copy 1 never circulated. Copy 2 and 3 were what circulated. So what we've been doing for the last probably 3 or 4 years, because the collection is vast, is digitizing copy 3. A lot of times when you digitize your copy, depending on what it's like, you destroy it. So that's why we call it digitize and discard, simply because there's nothing really keepable after that. Sometimes you discard simply because in a library you have finite amount of room, so you're always trying to make more room. So it's been a great opportunity to make room while also making sure we get things digitized. Once we're done with that part of the project, and we're getting very close to being at the end, there are still lots of materials in the collection. What I want to do is get some statistics. We have not kept a lot of this kind of statistics. I want to know what percentage out there has not been digitized based on age, based on agency, based on type of work, and then really identify what is the highest need and then make that the next project. And if that means we just need to start at floor 1 and move our way up, that is what we'll do. But in this last year, I have reallocated some of our FTE more into that digitizing program. We had one digitizer and kind of a part-time digitizing helper for the last 10 years doing all this work, or no, 5 years doing all of this work. And so devoting more FTE into that is really important and is going to make a big difference and allow us to more systematically move through that collection.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and place a link in the chat. I'll begin closing our session. Thank you so much. We hope that you all enjoyed this presentation. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Elka, for presenting. Also, thank you so much to the PMUG planning team Tiffany Goetz, Amina Foster, and Hilary Olivos-Rude for your help with coordinating these PMUG presentations. I've posted a link to a short survey in the chat that will help us improve future PMUG experiences and to nominate yourself or a colleague as a future speaker. You can look for a follow-up email with links to resources. Please share with your team members and those who may not be on the PMUG listserv to reach out with the link provided earlier in the chat. If you're interested in becoming an OPMAB board member, visit the OPMAB website posted earlier in the chat. If you're interested in learning more about business analyst processes or Oregon Agile Community of Practice, visit the BANG or OACP websites posted earlier in the chat. Again, please sign up to be a mentor by following the link in the chat. Enjoy the rest of your week. PMUG convenes again in March. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alka and Amy.
Thank you.